To another Devlog. This one is week 99. So on Monday it was all about creating the menu music. I was trying to figure out how to approach the task. As you saw in the demo, that was the final result. But I was kind of thinking about how to actually go about it. It was kind of like when I was doing the artwork, I I was kind of thinking okay, how do I take this on? Is there anything I'm missing? Do I need to take a course? And it kind of is no, I think I'm kind of ready to attempt it. I kind of feel I had to do some thinking about the process, but in the end, what got me unstuck was I kind of used other songs or other music pieces as reference, and that kind of guided me to what I wanted my music piece to sound like. Just like I used different art piece references to make my first artwork, I did the same thing with music. So it kind of gave me a framework for what tempo to use, what sort of tones to match. Now I couldn't copy a piece directly, but I could kind of borrow elements from it. In the previous session, I had already constructed some sort of overlying melody that I was going to use for the main theme, the main music. So I kind of I took the underlying tempo and kind of the beat and kind of slightly modified it, and then I worked with my melody and kind of tested it and refined until I got it to where where there was, it kind of loops four frames. It goes lower than higher and then lower than higher, and then it loops back on itself. And then finally I kind of touched it up with a little bit of ambient texture in the background. And at the end of the day, I was happy with the result. That's my first real composition, and I thought it was pretty acceptable. And it was actually a fun process doing music work. So all my previous hobby work of learning how to use Logic Pro, that actually came in handy here. I didn't have to start from the beginning like I did with learning Procreate for the artwork. I kind of had a leg up, but this is the first time I've actually put everything into practice and actually made a working composition for an actual commercial product. So I was listening to the track where I was almost sick of listening it, but I didn't want to go overboard. I wanted to keep it balanced and simple and to the theme of the game. So I didn't want to get too noisy. So I kind of any good art piece, you don't want when you feel it's done, it's pretty much done. You can come and revisit and refine it further, but at some point you don't want to you don't want to add too much. Just like when I'm constructing the level environments, like at some point you kind of feel that it's balanced enough. There's enough there. There's not too much. It's not too busy, and it's not too empty. Um, so that was on Monday. I got that. I got everything hooked up for the main menu music. Swapped it out for the old sound effect that was there. I had to fix a couple issues on how the app handles the main menus and music for like it wasn't hooked up properly with persistence, but I got it all working. And um, so as you saw in the demo, there's a little bit more to do. Like I have to manage the actual when the music is actually playing. Does it play during the cutscene, through the cutscene? I think it actually turns off automatically for the when the level starts, but I have to actually make sure that I manage when the music comes on and off at some point. Right now it just plays through everything, but next was Tuesday, and the next thing on my to-do list before I got into the next big thing, which is player features, was the first artwork for level 1. And so I basically proceeded like I did before, which I set up the references, just like I set up a scene and kind of did a screenshot of what I would model things after, and that would be like heavily almost like tracing on that and like applying pretty much doing like my artwork consists of like almost tracing from a reference scene, pretty much matching the matching the shadows first. So I'm trying something a little different this time than my first one. See if I can get a better process. See if I can get a better result in the end than I did the first time. Just feel a little bit more comfortable in actually doing the second art piece this time. So, and we'll see what works, what doesn't, and it's all about getting more experience doing actual art pieces. So, first step, I outlined all the elements in pencil sketch instead of going directly to blocking out the grayscale color. I wanted to block out. I did a rough block out of the elements. Yeah. And then I did a more refined block out for each of the elements, but it still turned out, I was trying to color match and do color this time, but it still, for some reason, it still turned out like the actual saturation so low, it still looks like it is in grayscale. So I'll have to go and recolorize at the end. So a couple hours in, I was quickly realizing this is gonna take a long time, and I didn't want to go all the way through, like start to finish like I did last time. I kind of wanted to break it up, so I kind of grew fatigued. I'm still on kind of like a late night sleep schedule or whatever. I'm trying to get back to it, but I decided to break up the work for the art piece and probably just do 2-hour sessions each day until it's finished. In the meantime, I would switch over to the next epic leg, which is player features. I did a quick PM round to kind of look at this next leg of work that I had to do and kind of like organized, what to tackle first. I decided to tackle things that I thought would take the longest to the least. It's a good amount of work for the next epic leg, and it has a lot of things to do with like fixing a lot of issues with the player. I've noticed that I've put tickets out for, but also a few new features to prototype, and the major one was adding player melee functionality. It's like at some point I wanted to have this in the game, and I think it would really fit and add value, but my previous prototyping in the early years was just focused on shooting and ranged combat. So this is like the next step forward, but just like everything else, it has to go through this prototype building phase. So kind of let's see here. Oh, this is the main menu music. We're not interested in that right now. We want to So basically, the first thing I'd set up and took care of was making sure that I could bring up the equip menu from the keyboard on the tab screen, and I had to go in and fiddle around with this actual get this new icon here. I had to go in and select the weapon from my packages. I had different weapons to select and choose from. I chose this model here with this color, and I got this working. And I had to fiddle around with the icon creator again. Remember how that worked, but I eventually got it positioned so I could take a transparent screenshot, just like I did with all these other ones. And then I had to make a new entry and do a bit of work to add it in this position and whatnot, like I usually do. And then I had to hook everything up to make sure. The next step was doing equipping, and that's really where let's see here, I really had to dive back into the whole the whole system of equipping. The main issue with this whole thing is that if we look at the components and the weapons here, I have this shooter manager. There's this whole mirror side. Like everything with the current weapon system has really focused on the assumption that we're dealing with shooting weapons only, and it has everything according to that. Like a shooting weapon has projectiles and all these different settings according to it. Now there's a whole another side to it called, like, you know, melee manager, which really focuses and assumes that on the other side of it is just a weapon that deals with melee and all the behaviors associated with it. So not only I had to go through my draw weapons, and I had to go in and kind of implement accommodations, and I had to kind of tie the two systems together. So this is in Vector's melee manager, and Vector has its own classes for melee type weapons, but I had to go in and kind of architect and create this new, like, overarching weapons manager that kind of tied these two managers together just for ease of use in the actual draw in the draw weapons class, so it can reference this overarching class and get the dependencies it needs from either one depending on the currently equipped weapon. So there was a lot of testing and coding involved this week, and just to make sure that, so I had to go through like every step of the way, and I kind of noticed the need for this class and to like restructure the code so it's really clean and efficient and clear. And I'm not always doing these little checks everywhere saying like, oh, is it a shooter manager, or is it a melee manager, or is it a, you know, is it a melee weapon or a shooter weapon? It would just be really messy. I had to really kind of abstract everything behind this manager class that manages either melee or shooter weapons. So, you know, and it was all about working with the drawing, the whole weapon drawing process, really. And I kind of, you know, I had to make sure the code all worked, but I also had to do the actual I had to do the animations here. Let's see. I guess I can't use the keyboard and the in the scene view. But anyways, it's all about the first process was just getting the equip working, and at the end of the week it was about doing the other end of the side, which is doing the unequip, and making sure like all the data is set correctly. Like I was having trouble with the animations because there's a little variable called upper body ID. I had to do like a separate upper body ID, and just like everything else, I was kind of getting stuck on Thursday. I was going round and round. I was trying to reappropriate like this is equipped boolean into my weapons manager, and this is just, you know, I wanted like a unified variable to say, oh, is it equipped? Is the actual, you know, to tell when the animations stopped and equipped, and just to give the actual weapon ID lerp to get it right. Otherwise, the animations kind of looked off. They're kind of lerping through improperly. But I had to do a lot of testing. But I was trying to reuse. I was trying to hook into this is equipped for the weapon, but the problem is it was being used internally by Invector for different purposes and situations, and I just couldn't get full control of it. At the end of the day, I did my own is equipped boolean, and all my problems went away. Um, it's just like, yeah, that's what I should have done in the first place, because I was just trying to track down, like, why is this, so if you're fixing their variable, you're breaking their uses, their assumptions, but having your own separate boolean, then you can control it and know what's actually going on. So long story short, it's just a matter of doing a lot of testing, and at times it just feels like you're going around circles playing whack-a-mole, or that your system can't scale properly. But on Friday, I came back to it again, and I got unstuck and things started progressing forward again, and I had to make sure that the equip and unequip was working in crouching, and also in cover as well. Yeah, when you're in cover, like the nice thing about this, the nice thing about the melee weapon is the actual animations provided, there was actually no need for me to set up like IK. I could actually use the out-of-the-box animations and just position the weapon offsets correctly, and it looks quite acceptable. So, yeah, just a lot of testing, and I'm pretty good with the results. I had to make sure that the functionality to do switching was working as well. So that means if I go from one weapon and then I go to another weapon, that it can actually work correctly and not. So there's little edge cases, some of the animations were off, but just a lot of different testing. It was a surprising amount of work getting everything finally, really looking tight, and just no real issues, and there was no slop. At the end of the day, like, I had revisited the whole system of IK setting, and it's just like, I had fixed so many issues, like other issues that I hadn't spotted before, just revisiting the system that weren't quite right. I was afraid that I was breaking stuff, but at the end of the day, there was no going back. Like, I had actually, really reinforced the actual equipping and all that process to a point where it's like, it was a change and I could have broken something, but at the end of the day, these fixes, in my opinion, actually made the system more resilient, more stronger, and overall just better. There's just things I hadn't spotted the first time, or rough patches that needed to be fixed or optimized. Same thing with my my weapon IK manager here. Like, it just didn't have the ability, I didn't anticipate for like a dual weapons. Like, I didn't have the ability to change weapon offsets for dual weapons, because I had originally built it for a single-handed weapon. But it was really interesting revisiting the system. Like, I'm looking at all the structure and things that I built over time, and it's just like a beautifully complex system, and like, I had slowly remembered how to use it, but it's just like, I was kind of amazed, like man, I built all this. I really did build all this system and test all this through. It's like, even with some of its flaws, like, it's just kind of amazing how this whole darn thing operates. It's just like, and that I built it, and just like adding this new melee weapon to everything, it just felt like adding something on top of a system, and I was worried that, like, my system wouldn't hold up adding this new melee type, but eventually it did. The architecture proved sound, like I hoped it would. it didn't feel like it couldn't handle it at some point, but I eventually got it working to where, you know, I got all the issues sorted out. So I'm happy with that. So that was pretty much the week. Pretty cool. The next real step now is actually working on, which I left off, is the interaction. So hitting a button will actually send off animations for melee attacks, which I have, and they're ready to go. So that's the work for next week. It's all about doing melee attack interactions and then getting it so that the weapon colliders work with different things and actually work like projectiles. I guess when they hit something, they actually cause damage or whatever. So that's really what next week's about. I knew this one would take a little bit. This is still like prototype phase. This prototype phase for melee weapon functionality will end when I get attacking animations working and attacking collision for damage. And the nice thing is, like, when I add the second melee weapon, which is a dual katana, it won't be twice as hard because I've already built the foundation to add melee weapons to the system. So this was the hard part, and the first part of like equipping and unequipping is pretty much in the bag, which I'm happy about. So what will happen next week? Yeah, just more melee work. Yeah, it's prototype phase. It's taking a little bit longer, but the rest of the stuff for this leg shouldn't take as much. I don't think I'm doing any major prototypes. And as I approach the end of year 2, I think the less and less prototypes I would be able to do. So I can't do add any more features because it just won't fit in the game. So it's like, especially in year 3, if I have to do a prototype in year 3, like, I would really have to be careful at that point. Otherwise I won't be able to deliver at the end of the time. So that pretty much wraps up this week. I have more work to do on the first art piece. That should be finished as well. I'll continue my 2-hour sessions, but that's pretty much what I did this week, and we'll call it a week, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye.